All right, welcome everybody. Sorry for the late start. A little bit of setup and this and that, running back and forth, but a little bit of late lunches. But now that everybody's sitting down and chewing, and I'm sure in their age you can't hear me, which is probably not such a bad thing, I guess. But that's why we don't get too crunchy of food, right? So welcome everybody to the first Seattle Revit User Group of 2013. My name is Rob Bendix. I'm the Seattle Revit User Group President. So we, and of course the board obviously, welcome everybody to come out and visit us, and for all you professionals as well as future professionals. We are, for those of you maybe your first meeting with us, we are an AEC Community Technology Group. We definitely draw an emphasis on Revit, obviously per the name, BIM and collaboration, of course. SeaRUG is a free and collaborative learning environment designed to benefit all of our disciplines. I know that we definitely have balance in different groups and different market groups that actually come visit us, but that is one goal of ours that's really huge, is to make sure that we're touching base with everybody and all teams, because after all, this whole idea of collaboration is a pretty big deal. And so what better way to have an environment that goes as cross-discipline as possible. A few questions I always like to ask in relation to the presentations that we have. So who here in the office, maybe just a little show of hands, has experience with modeling, has experience, has done it before, or doing it now, collaboration between design and construction? Okay, good, almost half. That's good. How many feel that they're really not too far away from that step and are looking to learn more? Okay, a few people. Good, excellent. First, of course, we can't really do this without our sponsors, so we got to do the necessary sponsor plugs that we have. Our executive sponsors for this year, PPI Group, ID8, and Imagine It. Obviously, we thank them for their contributions and also their participation in more meetings this year, so look for that too as meetings come out each month. Of course, our premier partners, another great segment of partners, Tetra 4D, who happens to be our host sponsor this month. Canon and OSE, and as well as Quarry Group. So we definitely thank them. And of course our associate partners, a lot of the firms and organizations in the community that really like what we're doing and support us. Wood Harbinger, Fry Height and Ho Architects, GLY Construction, Mulvaney G2 Architecture, Lydig Construction, PCS Structural Solutions, FSI Consulting Engineers, and Inventrix Engineering. So if you're interested in more, if you're on here, we did this whole big slew of sponsorship and setup, and if you submitted your sponsorship and didn't get on an associate or whatever, I profusely apologize. We are continuing to get some things in, so we'll make sure to get you covered and recognized. But if you do want some more information on sponsoring the group, you can go to the SeaRUG.org page and the sponsoring information link. Okay, there was a big survey that we put out last year. We had 89 people participate, which was great. It was a nice section. Now, obviously, we have a lot more membership out there, so the 89, I'm sure, are mostly people that are in the local area that come to the meetings and are a little bit more familiar. But I wanted to give you a little results. I'm sure always people are like, hey, I filled it out. I wonder what came back. So I'll just do a little summary of kind of the main items. Obviously, most people work in Revit, and some people use it at some capacity. Obviously, still more people learning, which is always great to see. Most users are using Revit architecture, not necessarily that they're architects, but obviously there was only one choice there, and I know a lot of us use multiple versions. And discipline, a lot of architectural group, structural, mechanical, of course, supporting them, a lot of GC. We have a lot more GCs here. How many on the general contracting side that are here today that maybe don't normally come out? Okay. And then, of course, a mix of other groups. This is kind of just like your standard, you know, what type of people that we get coming into the groups. Influencers, usually like managers and such. This is an interesting one that didn't, you know, a few years ago, these were like flip-flopped. So that's really great to see that a lot of the people that are participating and coming here are pushing that intermediate and advanced level stuff. So we definitely want to try our best to try to get as much in front of that group as possible, but without forgetting the fundamentals, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of people still learning. And quite honestly, if you're like me and ever gone back and learned some fundamental stuff, those are some things that we tend to forget sometimes, you know, taking it back to basics. So sometimes the fundamentals are actually a really good thing to kind of ground your technology advancements, I guess, a little bit. A lot of us are BIM managers, CAD managers, and modelers. So we have, of course, we got project managers. We definitely like to see the project managers and principals come out to these things, because even though they may not use the technology, a lot of what happens, their awareness is actually really important and helps promote the good development of your projects and coordination. A lot of people do try to come as often as possible. Pretty standard answer, I guess, there. 12, never. I guess those are the groups that maybe look forward to the online posts that we have or that outside the area. And I got to know, who's the two who said they never miss one? I need to see two hands. Oh, man. All right. I guess they missed one. Their streak is broken. And then, of course, the topic one. This is the big one that really helps us understand what's going on for the course of the year. The top 6, basically this is an average of all of the counts were put in, so I guess not surprising, BIM management standards and best practices, general tips and tricks, specific features, visualization, model checking, workflow collaboration, which has a little bit to do with what our presentation today is about. And also just kind of rounding out the field with some of the other topics. Now these are ones that we definitely talk to our sponsors and presenters every year, and this is a form that we give them. We say, look, this is what our demographic is, this is what our groups are, this is the people that come to our meetings, and this is the stuff that they're interested in. So we definitely want to make sure that we try to fulfill that request as much as possible. So that every month you come out and there's always something new to learn. A couple new things coming out. We are working on presenting a new website. We do know that a lot of people, we have limitations with our site. That's not really any mystery, especially for those that are very familiar with our current website. One of the big things is we try to focus around meetings, attendance, registration, posting up feedback and stuff like that. So we're putting a lot of thought into how we want our new site to operate. And so we do want to get something out here in the next few months, so keep an eye out for that. The only reason I say that is because obviously we may or may not be able to transition existing users, so there might be some sort of re-registration that happens, so I just wanted to put that out there. Obviously we want to make it as painless and as simple as possible, so we don't lose too many people. Hopefully we actually gain more people out of this change. Prize drawings, that's one thing that we're going to definitely do every month for every meeting to hope entice people to come out, because it's great that you can see these things on the web, but at the same time you tend to get a little bit more interaction, feedback, meet some of the peers that are in the area. There's a lot of those additional benefits that is to just coming out to a meeting, so we figured, hey, why not? Our sponsors have been really good to us. Why not be starting to offer some drawings at the end of meetings and say thank you to being part of the group. And that's the catch, you must be present to win. So those that sneak out early, sorry. So bring your business cards, bring something to drop in the bucket every month. So definitely we thank our sponsors in the way that we're able to balance out our budget a little bit to be able to provide those things. And so actually we have some really nice drawings this month too. So we'll get to those in a minute. SeaRUG meetings now available on YouTube. This is a big thing of ours we wanted to put out. We were putting videos on our website for a long time. Pushed out to YouTube, which is great because that allows to get more presence, more reach out there. People can search Revit, BIM, all these different things, and be able to find our stuff, which is great. So definitely go check out our page. You just go to YouTube and just search SeaRUG. You'll see it there. We only have a few of our videos up there right now. We want to plan to get more up there in the very near future. And then as these meetings are done and goes through post, then we'll get those up as well. But we do want to have things like handouts and stuff like that we have for the meetings. We'll go back to our website, so it'll encourage some traffic back through there. So those right now are all of our past meetings. You can still find on SeaRUG.org downloads. And please subscribe. A couple other things. Revit Technology Conference is coming up. For those of you that want that almost like AU experience, except all Revit all the time, or in your face. So I'm definitely going to try to check it out this year, especially since it's close to home. We're right up the road in Vancouver, British Columbia. Registration opens on March 4th, and of course go to the RTC events site to get more information. I'm going to kind of blast through this just because we got a late start this morning. So Autodesk Labs, I'm a big proponent of. I talk about it a lot just because there's so much new cool technology that's up there that we can't be afraid of. I mean, we got to use this stuff. We got to embrace it and leverage it. There's a lot of good stuff out there that are coming through, especially for Revit and BIM. Fab MEP importer for Revit MEP, that's actually been out there for a little while now, so I just wanted to make mention for those that are using those or maybe working with groups that are using Fab MEP. Maximo integration with Revit. This one's kind of new. I don't know many people using Maximo right now in BIM. I mean, I know it's out there. I know Maximo is a very popular utility, but as far as that tie-in, but what's great to see is that there's tools now coming out there making it easier to translate that information from Revit into tools like Maximo. Project Falcon. This one's actually kind of fun if you're in the design side of things. Wind tunnel simulation, which is pretty slick. I mean, tools like Visari have it. But the thing I find really interesting about Falcon is it actually happens right within your Revit environment, and you can do all sorts of different analytics that you can't do with Visari. So it kind of gives you this more tighter area to work within, and so it's actually pretty impressive. Chronicle. This was actually a new one that I'm looking into, getting into a little bit more of about because I'm a design technology manager, so I do videos and things like that. I do training at my office. So this tool that works with multiple products, not just Revit, it's like AV screen capture, and it actually captures workflow, so it knows what commands you're using too. So it puts those up on the screen and actually records keystrokes so that when you play videos back to people that you're showing them how to do something, they don't just have to watch, but they can see what's happening. Grapevine is also a new one that's come out, visual approach to user forums where people can post up images and things like that and get feedback, whether it's internal or external. So that's going to be interesting to see how that approach goes with on user forums. And of course, they have an Autodesk 360 tie-in with that. Okay, sponsor recognition. So let's jump to this. Like I mentioned before, we can't do it without our sponsors. This thing's all put on with the help of our sponsors. And so we definitely thank them for all their contributions throughout the year. So with that, I would actually like to thank Tetra 4D and introduce Ira Rodriguez to come up and talk to us a little bit about what's going on with Tetra 4D. He's the product and technical marketing manager. And through the generosity, we actually have 5 copies of the Tetra 4D 3D to PDF Revit plugin that are going to be given away at the end of the presentation. So I'll hand it over to Ira, and we'll come around and make sure we get business cards picked up as well. So, thanks, Ira.
So welcome, everybody, and I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to go relatively quick. And just a show of hands in terms of an introduction here. How many of you in the last week and a half or so have either received, created, or have viewed a PDF in this past week? Almost everybody, right? So all of you are very much familiarized with a 2D PDF. Now, just a show of hands, how many of you are familiarized with a 3D PDF? Okay, a little bit less. How many of you have actually created a 3D PDF? Even less. So we're going to change that today. So we're gonna, I'm just gonna go through a presentation, but we're gonna change the whole process for you today. I think we've got some great solutions for you to be able to do that more frequently. Just one last question here for a freebie. How long has a PDF been in existence? Just throw it out, shout it out. Who knows the answer to that? I can't hear you. 25? 20. Who said 20? Very good. Okay. So meet with Sharon. Meet with Sharon. She's got a show of hands there. And she'll give you a free plug-in of 3D PDF for Revit. All right. So very quickly, I want to be able to introduce the team. Tetra 4D is actually created with just a small group of people. Big impact. Beginning with our president, who is Greg Baker. Greg, are you here? All right, so Greg Baker's right over there. Our CTO, Craig Trudgeon. There we go. And Director of Marketing, Marcy, who's not here today. And Molly McMurray. Molly, maybe you do remember Molly from her days at Imaginit Technology. So Molly is now with us over at Tetra 4D. Sharon Stacy, whom you've seen. Make sure you give Sharon your business card if you want to try to win some of the plugins today. And Aaron Davidson, I'm not sure if he's here today, but Aaron Davidson is our business of operations. Okay, so that is Tetra 4D. Small group, big impact. Okay, and we're happy to be one of the premier sponsors for this year's SeaRUG. So just a quick timeline. How did we come about to this point? Okay, so in 1993, Adobe came out with the Acrobat program. And it was a means to actually exchange PDFs or file formats between computers. Now, along with that, they also came out with the Acrobat Reader. Now, Reader, at that point of time, wasn't free. It was actually $50 a pop. And if you're lucky enough to be one of those customers who can actually have 500 seats or more, they give you a discount of $35 a seat. So, but luckily, that didn't last very long. By 1999, they had their 1 millionth download of the PDF Acrobat Reader at that point of time. By 2003, they had to rename it. Well, not that they had to. They renamed it simply because they realized that the PDF was actually being created not just from Acrobat, from most of the Autodesk applications out there, and from other applications as well. And so you guys are now familiarized with the Adobe Reader. In 2005, how many of you remember Acrobat 7? They embedded 3D capabilities into Acrobat, right? Maybe just a handful. But it was at that point of time when they started changing that format and that technology. By 2008, we then get the PDF as an open source and ISO. It becomes an ISO standard. So then we have a lot of countries who are now getting into the bandwagon of a PDF. And so PDF begins to grow. So by this point of time, okay, oops, so let's go, oops, I'm sorry. So by 2010, Acrobat realizes that, okay, they can't control the 3D PDF as much anymore in part of their extended versions. So they've kind of pulled out a lot of their 3D capabilities and leased it out to, not leased it, but they pushed it out to companies such as Tetra 4D. So Tetra 4D is the exclusive provider of 3D PDF technology. Now, at this point of time, we have over 1 billion readers out there in the marketplace. That's 98% of desktops worldwide. Okay, so that's a lot of readers. Keep that in mind as we start thinking about the process of how to use a 3D PDF. So right around that time frame, when Tetra became a company, we came out with that. We pulled out the capabilities out of the Acrobat, and we created a product called 3D PDF Converter. Okay. With Converter, we actually are able to pull in a lot of file formats and read them through the Acrobat environment. And then in December of this past year, we went to Autodesk University. We introduced our 3D PDF for AutoCAD, and we were entered into the AppHab competition that Autodesk had for the first year, and we won 3rd place in that competition. But simultaneously, we also came out with our 3D PDF for Revit, 3D PDF for Maya, Max, Inventor, and Navisworks. So we have 6 products out there in the marketplace for you that are kind of following the ecosystem of Autodesk products that you guys are familiarized with. So who are our customers? So we have a different, Robert, you got some more people there. So we have different customers in different industries. In the in the automobile industry, we have customers such as Ford, Volvo, BMW. In the aerospace environment, obviously we've got Boeing on there. Government and research, you have companies, you have the military, you have NASA. Consumer products such as GE. Manufacturing, you've got Alcoa. Most of you know who Alcoa is. And in the A space, you have companies such as CH2M Hill, ACOM, Turner Construction, large amount of groups of people using our products. Okay? So how does it work? This is a real quick demo here.
With Tetra4D's 3D PDF plugin for Revit, you can easily create stunning 3D PDFs of your design data and easily share them anywhere with the free Adobe Reader. Creating a 3D PDF is as easy as pushing the button directly from your Revit application. Confirming from the scene manager the content you wish to publish. Give your new 3D PDF name. And soon after, the Adobe Reader will launch, displaying your newly created 3D PDF. It's that simple. Tetra4D, the source for 3D PDF technology.
And it really is that simple. You simply push a button, you're able to create a background with images and some platform that's maybe more closer to what your profile is for your business, and then you run with that. I'll show you some other examples here as well. So once you get your 3D PDF made, what else can you do? So this is where Acrobat comes in. You don't necessarily need Acrobat to create a 3D PDF using our plugins, but Acrobat gives you so much more capabilities. So in terms of those functions, the PDF, the plugin for Revit allows you to add a password as an example. But if you need to protect your intellectual property, you can use Acrobat to do so. If you want to prevent people from printing, if you want to prevent people from taking your images, your intellectual property off that PDF, then that's when you would use Acrobat. We have a merge option that allows you to consolidate PDFs into one file. But Acrobat allows you to actually extract and pull or add media or do all sorts of other things or add portfolios into those file formats. So here's some examples here. This is actually a portfolio where I can cycle through each one of these images. Great tools to be able to use for presentation purposes. Okay? As well as put video in it as well. So I'm going to pause this one here. Another option here. Okay, here's another PDF with the 3D environment. Okay, here's my model. But even though I have a number of views, and these are the views that I received from Revit, I can create simple things, or not only that, but I can add a couple of, these are my 2D views, right? But I can create simple things such as buttons. Let me go back up here a little bit. Maybe I want to cycle through each one of these views, make it easier for the customer to be able to cycle through all those views with different file format, with different rendering modes in the PDF. Here's one with a section. It took me but just a few minutes to push that button and follow through with those things, okay? So that's just a real quick example of some of the things that you can do with the, let me close this guy down, with Acrobat. Okay, a couple of other things on there. You can create content, forms, for example, put them online, have people sign those forms, export that stuff out, as well as being able to take a lot of the information you have in Acrobat, push it back out into Microsoft Word, PowerPoints, and vice versa. So very powerful to be able to use Acrobat in those formats. Okay, so how much does all this cost you? Well, if you wanted just a plug-in, it's $199. If you're using Revit, if you want 3D PDF for Revit, 3D PDF for AutoCAD, 3D PDF for Navisworks, it's $199. If you're using Maya or Max, it's $99. Straightforward, right? Low cost. If you want to get Acrobat with the products, you know, with 3DF for Revit, for example, it's $398 and then $298 respectively. Now, just something to keep in mind as you go back home to your offices, getting the plugin and getting Acrobat simultaneously with us will be less expensive than you having to upgrade Acrobat on your own. So just FYI. Okay? So that's it. That should be my 10 minutes, right? So give us a shot, get some trial downloads, and make sure you stay tuned. If you haven't yet, give your card over to Sharon so that we can do some drawing at at the end of the show. Okay? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ira. Okay. So without further ado, since I started the logjam, so. So our feature presentation. So I'd like to introduce David E. Quigley. He is an MBA graduate of the Whitmore School of Business and Economics, and he's the Chief Operating Officer at EastCoast CAD/CAM. It's also his family mechanical contracting business. So he's here to tell us a little bit more about himself, his company, as well as State of BIM Adoption throughout construction and what's holding us back.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Dave Quigley, and I have quite a bit of experience in the contracting world. I'd like to begin by determining how many contractors might be in the audience today. Could you raise your hand if you have anything to do with a contracting firm? And it's looking like we've got about 12, which I think is a wonderful thing, by the way. And it's not to put any of you others down, because we need you. We need your conceptual designs. We need your MEP work. We need your structural designs for us to do the practical work of building this stuff. So my talk today is all about utilizing the core tenets of what building information modeling has been professing for all of these years, from the very beginning to where we are today, which is thou shalt not redraw. And I must say, look for the exception here. Is it happening today? That is, you start with a conceptual design and you end with your as-built, and it hasn't been redrawn at any stage of the way. Anybody raise your hand if it's happening today? We got one up there. And I'm going to talk to you. What's that? Residential. Interesting. Okay. Commercial would be a whole nother side, but yes, we'll have a conversation, because I'm very, very interested. I don't want to take the limited time that we have right now to look at that, but my proposition or supposition in this presentation is that it's not happening today. And if it doesn't happen, if there is a break in that workflow, then you don't really have BIM. You're losing out on all of the rich, robust data that starts with the conceptual design with the architect, that begins building that into that model, into that single file, through all the different tiers. But if it breaks, if you have to redraw it, you lose it. So that's my supposition. We're going to talk about that today. But I'm first going to give you, I'm going to kind of go outside of my, what I had planned to do. I am going to, let me see about controlling this. I'm going to show you here. This works. This is today. This is a Revit MEP drawing. Now, up here you can see it doesn't have all of the other elements to it, all the other objects, because we filtered all that other stuff out. This is from the perspective of a heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing, piping contractor's perspective, because that's what we care about when we see a Revit MEP drawing. So as you can see, this is Revit MEP. This was an average MEP design. It was a real design. And what I'm going to show you today is where the future is going incredibly quickly. Because I'm going to suggest some things to this Revit users group today that you could argue with, that you could debate with, but I believe there is a shift taking place inside of Autodesk, and it's, whether I'm right or wrong, it's my personal opinion, but there is a shift, and we'll talk about that shift and the role Revit MEP is going to be playing in the future. I'll tell you right now what my suggestion is, and what you'll see throughout my presentation today is that the shift is going where you would expect it to go. It's going into data. The elevation, the harvesting of data from authoring tools above the authoring tools, above things that restrict the user, restrict the design, restrict the process, that make it hard to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish today. And this is happening today, and this is what you're going to see in this demonstration today. This is the harvesting of robust, rich Revit MEP object data, elevating it up into a database. From that database, it's an aggregated database, mind you. That means that it basically takes collectively all of the objects, parts, pieces, aggregates it according to space, zone, level, etc., captures it there, and then pushes it anywhere you want. It can push into an MEP construction documentation tool, such as AutoCAD MEP. It could push it to a facility management export, such as Kobe. We heard earlier about Maximo and Revit MEP, being able to import and manage data out of Revit MEP for construction operations, building information exchange data that's passed to the facility management tool. Well, if you have all that data in an aggregated database, then you can push that out to facilitate that workflow as well. Now, in addition, so now you've got this, let's say this is what you're going to see is going to work, right? That you've got this aggregated database. We push it into the fabrication, construction documentation platform for true fabrication detail. That means that you can actually take it from there and send it to a coil line, send it to a plasma cutter, send it to a liner table, send it to your prefabrication shop with accurate, precise measurements for cut lengths, for materials, for all kinds of incredible manufacturing processes, all from a Revit MEP drawing. Now, there are best practices that I will recommend, and if we had a longer period of time, I would give you a working order of what those best practices are. But again, understanding that my constituents and customers are the contractor, okay? So when I give out best practices, the best practices are relative to them making full use of that Revit MEP model. Lots of people say today, often when I travel around North America, they say, well, Revit drawings are crap. You know, they're useless. That's what everybody says. And I have seen over the past year probably 35 different Revit MEP drawings from around the country. And there are all kinds of qualities from poor to really good. But every one of them have legitimate effort data, object data that somebody went to an effort to do for some purpose. To be able to harvest that and utilize it is at the core of building information modeling. That's why I say that if you are redrawing, you're breaking building information modeling and you're losing all of that data. And I've got plenty of data to support that. Anyways, back to this little demonstration, which is the process by which we take a Revit MEP model, harvest it, and create an aggregated database. So here we go. So as we're going here, you see in the top left, Project Manager. So this is that aggregated database. We're creating it from inside of Revit MEP. We could create it from a console outside of it in this database, but we're doing it just because it's easy to do it from where you've got the data to begin with. So we're defining the name of it. We're going to cut. This is not going to be a long demonstration. We're just going to cut to the chase on it all. But here we've created this Cleveland School of the Arts Theater project. So it's created in Project Manager. Now what we're going to do is we're going to register it. This is creating a link between this aggregated, link between this Revit MEP model and this aggregated database. Then we're going to commit the project to it, all of the project. In this process, it's pushing all of that data up or harvesting it or elevating the data to it. And now, very quickly, I told you we jumped through some hoops here, but no hoops that you didn't just see there. It was more of a time hoop. Right? Now we're basically going to be bringing into AutoCAD MEP all of those objects. We're taking in the equipment, all the relative equipment, we're taking in the pipe, and we're taking in the duct. And we're also saying, okay, I want you to populate that first level. And in the process of populating that first level, we're also going to define a specification for the pipe that we're bringing in. Because AutoCAD MEP, as a tool in the BIM process, is a great tool for construction documentation. We're assigning it thread by weld, and now we're going to finish it. And this is exactly what you get. And I'm going to stop as soon as it populates it. And there you go. This is what my proposition is, or my supposition to all of you. I mean, this is what we do today. This is what my software does. My goal today is not to promote and sell East Coast CAD/CAM solutions. My goal today is to bring to the folks that are in the heart of building information modeling. Everyone knows the Northwest, Southern California, and other pockets in North America are rich areas for building information modeling processes. We all know that. So the opportunity that Rob presented to me to come and share with you all the fact that building information modeling does work. And there are incredible efficiencies. Let me show you what those efficiencies are. I'm going to put this aside for a second. And this is, I believe, pretty startling information here. because I'm going to drop down a little bit. And by the way, I brought with me, I don't have them for everybody here, but anybody that's interested, this particular data sheet, which is a real customer quantifiably supported. In other words, we can share the Revit drawings with you. We can show you how we accomplish this. All right? This is utilizing the ability to gain access to that Revit MEP model. That means all of you designers out there that have put effort into your Revit MEP design, if you share your models, which is one of the 3 reasons why we are not successfully building information modeling projects today, because most design firms still today, believe it or not, do not share their models. What a shame. The onus for the failure for this are people that are advocating the use of it. And that's the amazing part to me, is that the onus for making this work starts with the sharing of the model. And MEP design firms across the country still refuse because they say, gosh, we're liable for what we put in our designs. Well, you're still liable in a PDF. I mean, what should it matter whether it's a print, a PDF, a digital document? Who cares? Share the model. Why? Because of this reason up here. I'm going to pick 2011-0397. That's a real project. This came from a real customer. I'm going to go here and just show you how we utilize this. All right, right there. See 75? 75 is the denominator that we used. We went out to our customers, our heating, ventilation, air conditioning customers, and we asked them, how would you measure an efficient, productive sheet metal detailer? What do you expect them to deliver on an hourly basis? And they say, of course, this is after a lot of questions and everything else, it comes out to about 75 lineal feet per hour per day for an average, fairly good detailer. So that's what we used as a comparison now. And then we started with this project. Well, we've done a number of them, but in terms of this project, we took that MEP design and we put it through the same workflow that we just showed you, where we harvested, and in this case it was just the duct. Okay? We harvested all the HVAC system information, and we brought that through the workflow, best practices. And there's a couple things that we would get into, and we couldn't get into at some point in the future about how one does that sort of stuff. But there are best practices to it. And we had a clock on the whole time. We measured the time, the effective productivity gains one could use with this workflow. And look what we found out in terms of lineal feet. I've got to get that. Lineal feet per hour. With this workflow, we were able to accomplish 1,752 lineal feet per hour. What does that turn out to in actual real time? That means in a little bit more than a day and a half, 11 hours, we were able to take an average Revit MEP drawing from a sheet metal perspective, fabricator's perspective, your drawings, your conceptual drawing, your MEP design drawing, we were able to take that and get it to a table in a little bit more than a day, compared to the 75 lineal feet per hour that the traditional fabricators use today. Most of them use this. They would redraw it. And what does it take? Almost a month and a half. 75 lineal feet per day. That is a profound benefit that BIM compliant workflow brings to the table. And this is all supported with real Revit files, with real actual active engaged Revit files. So I wanted to show you that because that's one of the major benefits of practicing a process that involves every domain, enhancing that object, enhancing that drawing, conceptual drawing through every stage with its domain expertise. All you should be doing, which is the advocacy of building information, and what it's professed from the very beginning is that's what building information modeling is. One model all the way through. Not one product all the way through, one product name all the way through. That is not it. BIM is a process. BIM is not a product. Processes change. Adaptions to processes evolve. And that's what we're going to be seeing. I suggested at the beginning that I'm going to talk to you about a shift from Autodesk. Now, who am I to speak about Autodesk? I don't work for them. I'm not privy to their strategies, but it's easy to see what's starting to happen, and I will get to that in a second. What I wanted to do here is open up one last thing here before we begin, and that is the other incredible benefit to building information modeling, and to be able to use that MEP design to be able to bring it into a contractor's world. Now I've definitely left your world, the architects, your world as MEP designers, because at this point in time, what you're participating in the building project. So you're going to coordination meetings, changes in the project specs, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm showing you here is the other benefit for the constituency of the contractor. Because now that you have rich, robust object data, what we do in technology, in a building information modeling platform, we can expand that object. So the object knows what it is. It knows it's a piece of pipe. It knows that it's a particular type of material. It knows its cut lengths. It knows where it's supposed to be. But hey, you can add all kinds of other things to it. You can add a barcode object element property set to it. And that's what we do. We assign at the time that the project engineer signs off on the project and says, all right, ready to manufacture. We give birth to these objects, to these assemblies, to these releases, pickoffs, whatever you want to call it. We give birth. It's day one of their birthday, at 0 birth. From that day forward, we can measure really critical things. Critical things for the customer, the owner, critical things for the actual GC, the project, and critical things, most importantly, for our customer, which is how well are they working on the productivity and the efficiencies that they use to estimate the project to begin with. They estimated that that space, at that level, that zone was going to take them such and such a time in terms of the installation process. Imagine the powerful value of having critical data at your fingertips if you're the project manager to know that a little yellow flag is starting to show up on your screen when it says that, well, today's work didn't go as expected. If you're the HVAC guy hanging duct and you go down the hallway and there's the electrical guy with all of his equipment in the way, you can't get access to that spot, guess what? You're not doing any work today. But typically, contractors don't find that out till the end of the week or the next week or 3 weeks later. And they find out when they've had a huge hit in the process, right? So now, if you've enabled these objects with barcodes, they're real things now. You can track their value. You can track where they are. Are they meeting that estimate, what you expected to do? And it's all within a Wi-Fi enabled smartphone, iPad, I don't care what it is, process to be able to track today. Site superintendent for this contracting firm said, we started here today and we finished here at the end of the day. Group 1, my second install team started here today, finished here today. Boom, boom, boom. Push. The data gets pushed, Wi-Fi enabled to that aggregated database. That's where it starts from. It's such a simple process, such a simple framework, but it works. And this is what the visionaries behind building information modeling has had from the very beginning. That's why you see on one side of it, you see the efficiencies gained in just the process of going from virtual to the table. But here's the process now for analyzing where the greatest risk is to my customer. 60 to 70% of the risk of them making money or losing money happens in the field installation process. So now we've given them an edge to manage that. So those are a couple of things I wanted to throw out there. And this particular tool I won't get into yet because I don't know if we have enough time. If we do, I'll come back to it because I'd like to show you how that tool works. But I do want to show you, because I wanted to get into some of really, I think, really deep stuff from a Revit user group's perspective. And that is where I think building information modeling is heading. All right, from current slide. Okay, and this should move it. Okay, so I'll let you read this for a second. Raise your hands if you know who said this, where it came from. I'd be surprised. I was lucky to find it, actually. But isn't this very, very much related to the advent of the methodology of building information modeling? It's taken years for people to become the believers in it. It's taken years. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to invoke a new methodology, a new way of thinking. People say, well, you know, contractors, they never change. You know, and architects, forget it. They never change. And it's been a long time. But Revit was designed by architects, written for architects. It's a phenomenal tool. Why shouldn't it succeed? And it was. The architectural community were the first ones to grab onto it. And it was an incredibly valuable tool, and is an incredibly valuable tool. Okay, one more thing to think about here. I promise this is the last thing I'm going to have you read. Pretty cool. Came out just a month ago, highlighting a Distinguished Industry Award, my customer industry award. This is what we've been doing in our industry for 15 years. We have been using 3D models. We have been coordinating with 3D models for 15 years. We're giving awards out based on the same workflow, based on all of the same stuff that we have been doing and doing and doing. No one's being given awards for actively pursuing and working on a full BIM workflow all the way through. And the reason is because it just ain't happening. It's not happening. And I'm going to talk to you about why it's not happening. All right. So I'm just curious, does anybody here, and believe me, I'm not going to pick on you if you do. Anybody disagree with me about it not happening? Maybe with you, the residential guy. Anybody else? Thank you. All right. We agree on the definition of BIM. BIM is not 3D. BIM is not 3D coordination or downloading to your table. BIM is the act of not redrawing and benefiting by all the efficiencies from that. We do know one thing. It's growing. The numbers of people here suggest it. We know the numbers across the country are reflective of that. It's definitely growing, and the quality of the projects are definitely improving. No question about it. It's the extending the model through the building life cycle that is not happening. It breaks. It breaks with my customers. It breaks in the construction industry. And once it breaks, the project does not benefit from it. Anybody disagree with that? All right, so today's presentation with 30 minutes to go, and I promise I'll capture this with 30 minutes to go, is the state of this industry right now in 30 minutes in terms of BIM adoption. And the reasons why, and guess what? The first one sits in the laps of many of you here who are in design firms. You don't share the model. If you don't share the model, it's not going to happen, okay? We just might as well forget it. So how are we going to break that? Well, it's starting to happen. Owners are becoming aware of it, and owners are putting in their project specs. You will share the model. Because if you don't share the model, you can't tell me you're doing building information modeling. All right? And I think that's a message that you can carry back with you to people. Just say it. Just tell your colleagues, tell your managers, tell the people that you work with, that you colleague with, tell them we need to share our models. And we have to not worry about the liability to it. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about the things that can be done about it, because I am working with a number of people in New York City and in Southern California and in Calgary, Canada, with a templated liability statement that starts from the contractor that they sign and they pass to the design firm, and they say, we will not hold you liable. And these are lawyered up documents that say, just darn it all, give me the drawing. I will not hold you responsible for anything. I just need a good starting point, right? And that's a starting point in not just IPDs and in design build, but even think about how valuable it would be in a design bid build. If you could get access to that drawing that MEP drawing and easily, as a contractor, mind you, but as a GC, why not? Easily get from there your estimate, which we can do. If you're given a Revit MEP drawing, we can bring it over. You saw how quickly we can bring it over. Bring it over, do a quick review. Is that how I'm going to fabricate? I've got 3 pieces of duct there. Now I'm going to change that into 1 piece of duct. I'm going to turn that into an OG. Boom. Make those couple corrections, go through your systems, get an estimate. Literally in hours of receiving that model, you can get an estimate. And that, compare that to what your traditional estimate dictates, it allows you, the contractor, allows that colleague, partner of yours, to be able to refine the bid down to a point where it's really darn precise. Who's going to benefit from it? Well, first off, my customer's going to benefit because they're going to have the lowest bid. Number 2, the owner's going to benefit from it because he's going to get the best bid. He's going to get the lowest bid. There's value in that. And it's a win-win deal, right? So, anyways, so the reasons also is interoperability. There is a tremendous lack of interoperability in software applications today. Now, there's an organization called the New Horizons Foundation. It's a research firm that's worked with the Sheet Metal Association of America for years. For the past 7 years, they have put out in their annual reports that software interoperability is the #1 contributing factor for failure in that industry. Software interoperability still remains so, and it does remain so in terms of accomplishing building information modeling. And here is another thing, the shifting workflows. That's what I talked about earlier. I'm going to expose a little bit of the shifting workflows because, as we know, and if you spend a lot of time listening to, going to seminars, value-added seminars, mind you, that generate from Autodesk, there is no question that first and foremost, primary on coming out of their mouths, every one of these things is Revit, 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 Revit. Everything is Revit, everything equals BIM. Now, I've been writing about building information modeling for 8 years. I was associated with Autodesk of those 8 years, 5 years, the first 5 years of those years. And I have the utmost respect for them. It's got nothing to do with it. They're a business, as I'm a business, you're all businesses. You promote your best value, what you have. I started, like I said, 8 years ago. And as the basis of my first articles that I started writing about building information modeling, I used Autodesk-generated articles. I wrote about Autodesk Building Systems, which is what AutoCAD MEP used to be called. I wrote about that platform as being BIM, taken directly from Autodesk literature, taken directly from their website. In between the time of me writing the article being released in an industry publication, Autodesk purchased Revit. And guess what? I got clobbered. They called me up within an hour of that article being published, and they said, "What are you doing writing articles about Autodesk building solutions systems being BIM? It's not BIM." I said, "I use your own articles." Well, it's not BIM. BIM is Revit, right? Shifting messages, shifting workflows. Building information modeling is anything that can take an object and extend it with more domain-specific value data, right? So nobody can tell me why AutoCAD MEP isn't building information modeling. It's based around property sets. It's based around extensibility. So the point being, and in reference to shifting workflows, is that when you look at BIM and you listen to Autodesk about BIM, no question it's Revit MEP. But now, a few years later, after clobbering me, and a number of years later, and the realization that Autodesk building solutions that turned into AutoCAD MEP was designed first and foremost as a construction documentation tool. A construction documentation tool that is built for the contractors and built around fabrication. It is an incredibly competent tool that is hard to replace. In fact, the engine, the core application programming interfaces, and all the software engineering behind it were built around delivering to the contractor a solution that satisfies their needs. Just like Revit was designed around to satisfy the needs of the architect. And every time you take that core requirement set that made up the software architecture of a tool or an application, every time you take it and make it do something else, it's just like taking a picture of a picture. It's a generation loss, right? My supposition is that if you go all the way down to Revit MEP and try to make Revit MEP something other than it's not, a fabrication platform, it's going to be pretty darn hard, because at the core of Revit MEP is an architectural modeling tool that constantly seeks to modify. Everything you do inside of Revit is modify, modify, modify. In fact, the core engine is a modifying engine. The established paradigm in Revit is that modify, modify, modify. Conceptualize to finalize. Be able to see the big picture whenever you want, right? And think about Revit, for example. From a perspective of the kind of performance and the perspective of what it delivers, right? Y'all, how many people know what XREFs are? Oh, great, thank goodness. That would be hard to explain if you didn't. So, XREFs are the main proposition for collaborating with other partners in the process, collaborating with all the other organizations that are in a building process, right? In AutoCAD MEP, it's done, XREFs are done with 2D, right? So you XREF in your participator, your colleagues, your partner companies with 2D, and it's quite manageable. But in Revit, you use linking, and linking with 3D objects. And you know how much that takes for computing? And the fact that in Revit MEP, every time you touch one object, it goes through the whole system and says, what's changed? What else has changed? So now you're not only doing that, but you're associating all these other linked-in files. So the point being, as more Revit models, Revit MEP models are constructed, more complex ones are constructed with more fabrication detail, there's a ton of hidden costs within all of that. So let's move on here. There we go. So today's presentation, what is BIM technology for the contractor? We'll talk about that in 20 minutes. How do we further BIM adoption? Okay, so we'll finish with all of that. Anybody who's been through an MBA has heard about Geoffrey Moore's adoption curve, and this is related to both being introduced products, technology, but also methodologies. Any new innovation has to go through this. Tons and tons and tons of studies support this. All right, so where do we think we are with building information modeling? And I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands. Participation here from all of you. How many people, if you imagine that this bell curve here is the state of adoption of building information modeling, I mean, there is no way, I mean, we know that, we're not there, okay? I mean, this is the total population in North America, contractors, architects, MEP designers that are participating in a full compliant, and of course that's where we've got that acceptability level. We all agree where BIM full compliance should be. The question is, how many people think we're here? Raise your hands. We're at the early stage here. Got a couple? All right, how many people think we're here? All right, and I haven't defined I haven't defined any of these yet for you. Early majority, how many people think we're here? And you're doing this now based on not whether you're an architect or an engineer. You all agree that this is, one more time, from BIM compliance, not just in your particular domain, but across the board. How many people think we're there? Raise your hand one more time. See, I didn't influence anybody to change their vote. That's good. All right. Well, my belief, and you probably know where it's aimed, is we're really there. The difference between the innovator segment of the industry, the difference between the innovator and this early adopter is the innovator, any new product that shows up, they're buying it. They don't even care. They're the first ones to have everything. They just buy it. This is new, I'm buying it, right? Those are those people. They don't care if it works. They don't care if they get their money back for it. They just buy it. Then the next group here, early adopters, those people, a little bit more pragmatic. They want to understand, well, is it going to make my process more efficient? Am I going to be able to get business? Is it going to enhance my business if I participate in it? And other kinds of considerations. This guy right here, early majority, They are pragmatic people. There is a huge chasm between these two. BIM hasn't hit that yet. I don't believe for 1 second that BIM is going to have this problem of getting past this huge chasm, but it's not there yet. It hasn't proven itself. There's all kinds of reasons to suggest that it's not there. It's going to be a hard thing. It may take years and years and years and years. But the whole point of bringing that up here, and this is the point I made before, that they are getting better, but there are these dips. And here's a dip. This is when you guys don't share your model. And the contractor, this is, if you can read that, it might be hard. Virtual design sign off. Okay, so this is the process by which a contractor receives a model from their designer. So in terms of these pillars, that basically is pointing out richness of the data, how relevant it is to the actual finished product it's going to be. So of course the design's not going to have spec or pressure classes necessarily assigned to it. It's not going to have all the real equipment that's going to be installed or the real manufacturers are going to be built, right? But anyways, they finish their work and I go, okay, good luck. PDFs are signed. 3D PDFs are given. Excellent ones, by the way. All kinds of uses for those PDFs. And then, so anyways, but guess what? There's this huge lag here. That's the time lag of having to redraw everything. Okay, so they've redrawn it. Now they get the sign off, they can begin manufacturing. Hey, guess what? They can download directly to their machines. That's pretty cool. So we now, and we've even assigned some barcodes to it. That's pretty cool. Right? Now we begin installations. All that rich data is still maintained there by that contractor, okay? Now we finished our ads builds, okay? All these manuals, they're this deep, right? Big manuals, maybe even some CDs and DVDs that have been created, and they're given to everyone. The facility facility and owner receives that. They're looking at these manuals. They're this big, and they go, who has a file cabinet that can fit all that stuff, right? Well, I got one downstairs by the mechanical room. Let's use that. They take it, they put it in there. And that CD that they had, that had a lifespan of about a year because of the software that was used, is associated with an operating system that gets replaced 2 years later, and no one ever keeps an image of that. So that CD gets thrown away or used as a toy later on, right? That's pretty bad here in terms of the value of what building information modeling brings. All right, a few years ago, it used to be technology that held you back. Well, guess what? That is possible right here. It's being done. This year in January, I went down to Washington, D.C. I spoke at the National Institute of Building Sciences in their annual convention, and I participated in the COBE Challenge, which is the delivery of a COBE-defined spreadsheet that could be incorporated into a facility management tool. And we succeeded at it. We gave them, Bill East, who is the guy that invented the COBE, was part of the committee. And he gave us flying colors, thumbs up. The only company that's in this industry that was able to deliver from a conceptual model that they produced, the U.S. Corps of Engineers produced this conceptual clinic model. We were able to take that conceptual model, bring it through all those different layers that represents right here, right to facility management. And because it's a spreadsheet, it'll last for years. Because that will be available for years for companies to have, for owners to have access to it. Okay, considering now we're getting down in terms of time, I will make this available to your organization if anybody wants to see it, because I've written up in the notes section all of the definition, the notes for actually speaking to this, and no ownership to it. These are things that people have been writing about for years, theorists, on what it takes to make a change in new technology, how to bring innovation to the masses. So there's a couple guys that do this. Just quickly go through it. This first one it's been around for years. Everett Rogers, thousands of studies have been done to support his proposition. How do you take an innovation and diffuse it into society, bring it into the world. It's a great book, which is referenced here on the bottom. All right, it's a theory of how, why, and what rate new ideas and technologies. That's certainly a consideration in all of this. I don't mean you to leave today and feel like I'm poking fun at you guys for not sharing your models. Yes, I do. Yeah, I really do. Because you're holding back. Yeah, no, I'm not really. Okay, because everybody does it. Everybody's doing it. It's not just you guys here in the Seattle region. All right, but this gives other reasons why this happens, okay? There are real good reasons, and again, I have slides on that, but we don't have time to go into it. They believe there are 3 valuable insights. Here they are, 1, 2, 3. Qualities that make an innovation spread successfully. What are they? They're down here on the left-hand side. They'll show themselves pretty soon. The importance of peer-to-peer net conversations, exactly what you're doing here today. This spreads innovation. And third, understanding the needs of all the segments. So you can't just supply the needs for architects. You can't supply the needs to make this work, by the way, for MEP designers. You have to do it for everybody, including the owner. There has to be benefit for everybody. That's why there's still a dip. That's why there's still not full adoption, is because not everybody's realizing the benefit and value of what this possibility, what it brings. But in fact, we all know that it is possible. Well, here are the 5 qualities that make innovation spread according to Mr. Rogers. Obviously, the relative advantage for everybody, the compatibility with existing values. In other words, I don't want a revolution in my company. I want an evolution. I want to still use the things that I'm currently doing. I want to just evolve. I want to get it better. If it's a revolution, it's not going to work. I'm not going to do it. I'm scared. If it's an evolution, it will work. Simplicity and ease of use. Okay, there's complexity. There has been complexity. That's the value of BIM consultants, and we have a few in this room today. I've been looking at one of them for agreement throughout the whole thing. but it's simplicity of use that will propagate more use for it. And obviously triability. Knowing that alone changed my company's approach to what we do to work with prospects. After I did this study and research and preparation for a couple different presentations, I went to the owner and I said, okay, from now on we're going to support trials. We hadn't supported trials because of the level of technical support needed on my side, technical support team side. But I realized that I've got to teach people how easy it is to get past this. So we now give and support all kinds of trials. And there's got to be observable results. So it was by no accident that I showed you that quantitative data sheet, which I have copies of if anybody wants. By no accident, because that's proof, real proof of profound differences in the use of a new technology. And then there's this other guy. His name is Jeffrey Moore. He's the one that had that bell curve in here, and all other really very, very important, valuable stuff, which we're not going to get into today. Okay, so this is the flow of BIM. It works. You can take a model all the way through to as-built. I am going to, with the 7 minutes to go, you know what, I've been talking a lot. I'm going to leave it open now, because there's other slides I could do. Who cares about them? I'd like to hear from you all what you think of what I've been talking about.
So I'm working on a project that we shared the model with the contractor. It's a commercial project, $15 million. They've been sharing the model all through design and documentation. And now we're starting construction. And the gap that I see is that a lot of our work isn't necessarily modeling that we're doing in Revit. It's 2D detailing that they're not seeing with the model. Because a rule that we learned early on with building a Revit model is if you don't see it at an 1/8 inch, you don't model it because it'll bog your whole system down.
Right.
So there's square yards upon square yards of flashing that only exist as a couple of maybe detail components or maybe 2D line work. So that's the gap that I see.
In your case, and I just want to repeat the question for purposes of the recording here, because they wouldn't have captured that, but the point that this individual has made in the audience is that on a current project that they are sharing their model and they're doing the design in Revit MEP, what they're forced to do because of the limitations or constraints of the base platform, Revit MEP they're using, they have to use a 2D variation of the details and of the objects that they're sharing. When they do it in 2D, that is not of any value, can't be used, can't be seen in some cases by those people receiving the files. So here's my response to it. There is a best practice available today. And it's based on understanding truly the capabilities and functionality that Revit MEP brings to the table. And there are lots of them. There are some great values to Revit MEP. But you're being forced to do something that that tool can't do. And it's kind of like just in life, you know, if you are not doing the right set of things, you're going to have problems. If you make poor choices, you're going to slip outside of the range of good outcomes. And that's what what's happening. There is a best practice for doing your design in Revit MEP. Trying to go beyond that and provide that fabricator, that contractor with more specific, manually defined, by the way, correct? All manual dimensioning, manual splitting duct here or there. Don't bother. It's no value. It's going to save you a lot of time, first off, not to go through all those iterations, because you're going to constantly fight that Revit engine. Revit is constantly going back to, it's just a modification, you know, I'm going to go back to what I think it's supposed to be. So, you know, if God forbid anybody delete that wall or ceiling or anything, because all the objects go with it that's associated to it. And the other, I mean, we could go on, again, another meeting potentially, what are the limitations to Revit and how one should utilize it. What we recommend to folks that use our workflow is to take that Revit model as far as you can based on the limitations of it, and then take it to the fabrication platform, AutoCAD MEP, with all of the value and efficiencies gained by that, which is, you know, fast productivity and et cetera. But thank you. Yes, in the back.
I don't really have a question, but just a general observation. I used to work in aircraft part manufacturing at Metal Systems, and we had to take classes on lean manufacturing, kaizen, things like that. And it's just having a model like that as well, which is a really nice model of how to do, you know, workflows. You know, I mean, lean manufacturing is some of the physical aspect of it, but it's just, you know, as far as, you know, the flow of the process of what needs to be built first to go where, and you know, it's just, I don't know, I just kind of like that model.
Exactly. And aeronautics, I don't even, what is aeronautic design?
Yes, part manufacturing, so.
Right. Honestly, yeah, because they know the capabilities and functionality that each tool along the way should bring to the table. Now, the point that I want to make to you, I said, and time is fast approaching here, but what I want to make here is that I stated by saying where I think it's going. Where Autodesk is going, where the market is going. You saw in my very short demo how we harvested and elevated data above the authoring tool. We took what was valuable in Revit MEP and we brought it up to this database. We then pushed it into AutoCAD MEP, enhanced it with all other kinds of value that only a construction documentation tool can do. Then we pushed that back up into the aggregated database. Okay? Now it sits there, and somebody said to me, well, when are you going to push it back to Revit MEP? Because all of our projects require that. You know, you got to push that back into Revit MEP. And I said, God forbid, based on your little description right there, why in the world would we want to push all of that complex, detailed, micro-detailed data into this platform that is not even meant to do that? It is an authoring tool. Now, my proposition to you all, and we'll see if it's true, so if you ever see me again, ever, you'll say, you idiot, you were wrong, or you were right. What I believe is going to happen is, it's not just East Coast that can do this. The technology is there today to harvest robust, rich object data, period. Everybody can do it. PDF publishers can do it. We have access to this. It is going to happen, which is elevating data above authoring tools and basically making the need for an authoring tool to be the repository of a finished as-built is going to be made irrelevant. And why do I say that? Because of the recent purchase by Autodesk of BIM 360. And BIM 360 is it's still a presentation tool. It is a light version of Navisworks Manage, right? That, alongside of Autodesk's incredible corporate effort to move all of the data to the cloud, that is what's going to happen. It makes no sense to move all that data to the cloud and then say, oh, and then we're going to push it down to this tool, Revit MEP, that is hard, you know, to manage all this complex data, and performance goes down the tube if you have, you know, et cetera, et cetera. They don't even know what owners want yet anyways for information. If you put it up into a database, all of your building data, you can mine that for whatever purpose you want. So there's going to be a ton of new technologies, a ton of new smaller companies coming out of nowhere, right? And last, you know, I like to read a business book every 3 or 4 months. Here's one that I would recommend anybody that is intrigued at all by what I just said about things that are going to change in this marketplace. It's called The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. And I've read this book 3 times. I've had it for about 2 months. I've read it 3 times because it's so fascinating, and it parallels what I believe is taking place right now in our industry with a company like Autodesk. And you'll see it if you do pick this up and read it, because what they talk about are companies like Sears and Roebuck, Digital Equipment Corporation, Steam Shovel, yes?
Yeah, if I could just kind of add a little bit to what you're saying and to what the gentleman was talking about. I think not only, you know, Revit MEP is one thing, Revit architecture is a little bit different, and one of the things as a general contractor that happens to us, you know, when we go out and we talk to architects, there's always that comment. We've got a lot of 2D information, we've got a lot of things that we just simply cannot, from a technology standpoint, put into the model. And those are all very valid concerns. So what I've been trying to promote in the industry is this concept, and it's a little bit of an abstract concept, but when you get your head around it, you know, it's less detail, more accuracy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I mean, obviously it requires a different delivery method than you know, low bid, but what I'd really like to get to, and what it seems to be working with the designers that we work with when we get in early, is I'd love for architects to not ever again have to worry about details that don't have to do with the way the things look. You know, if it has to do with a constructability issue, there are much better platforms other than Revit to add that detail into.
Right.
And the right person to own that scope usually has that tool.
And one of the best practices, I'll just add to it, we were talking for the listeners there, we're talking about the fact that from a general contractor's perspective, and in his role, he recommends to the folks that he works with, that talks to often, is to use Revit MEP, not from the perspective of detail, but from the, what was the word used?
More accuracy, less detail.
More accuracy, less detail, right? So don't focus on the detail. Leave that to the platforms, the tools that are better able to do that sort of stuff. Yeah, so the point that I was trying to make here, and I don't know if I lost it here, is in the innovator's dilemma, is that there is 2 types of technologies. There's sustaining technologies, which is, it gets better and better, version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5. It's a sustaining technology process that all of these big companies, whether it's a manufacturer, a retail giant, whatever. I mean, Digital Equipment Corporation, I worked for Digital Equipment back in the 80s, and it was the 2nd largest software firm in the world. 150,000 employees. I was one of them. Number 120526 was my number. And never thought that 15 years later, company didn't even exist. And this is the comparative thing besides sustaining technology that this guy brings out, because there's disruptive technology. And disruptive technology in each of these areas, and it's happening, and I can see it clear as day in what's going on with Autodesk and Autodesk. And that is, there is disruptive stuff happening underneath. And no matter, and by the way, these companies, Sears and Digital and disk drive industry folks, built multi-billion-dollar industries, multi-billion-dollar companies that disappeared. And it wasn't because they weren't great managers. It wasn't that they didn't understand their customers. In fact, they understand their customers quite well. They listen to their customers quite well. They sustain their technology. They kept coming out with a little better, faster, more highly performing products and services, and et cetera, et cetera. But what they didn't keep their eye on is the stuff that was happening underneath, the smaller markets, the smaller technologies that are going on. And what I would suggest, and what I'm suggesting here, the smaller things that are going on right now in this industry is data-driven software and technologies and innovations, because that is going to revolutionize and change the way we're doing our business. All for the good of you, for the good of your customers and everything else. But you know, that is my little, give me a couple things to think about today. I thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, David. That was a very thought-provoking. That was good. I really enjoyed that presentation. So first of all, I want to thank David Quigley for coming out and visiting us on his West Coast tour. A stop. I wish I could say he'd be here all week, but he's not. He said it out. The next day, okay. So, but no show tomorrow. So yeah, we're going to get some of those handouts from him. We'll get some of these things to post along with the video once we get this processed and uploaded. I want to, of course, thank our sponsor, Tetra 4D, Ira and his team that came out to visit us. We're going to be doing those drawings in just a second. And just so you know, our next meeting is March 20th. So thanks, everybody. David will be around. David will be around if you have any questions. When we talk to Ira, Tetra 4D, they'll be around. So feel free to hang out for a few. Thanks, everyone.